So I've been trying to do this live stream properly for a little over a month now. I was trying to figure it out back before January so I could start this off in the new year. I had a couple of problems with that though. First of all, I didn't know how to do it. So I went and did some research, found out how to do it. In the course of doing that, I accidentally uploaded something to YouTube Live, and I got myself banned because something was playing in the background and YouTube thought that I was pirating stuff. So it's been a little bit of a journey. After I got reinstated, I had some hardware issues, and then today some software issues. So I've been trying to do this through my computer, through Open Broadcast something studio, and I wasn't getting anywhere. For some reason the frame rates kept dropping and the audio wouldn't sync up. The hardware issue was again because of audio, and so all that is to explain why I'm doing this on my phone. So what is my live show going to be? Well, it's going to be a book review. It's basically going to be, I'd love it to be like a book group. So get your guys' opinions, maybe get you guys to read stuff, sort of let you know beforehand what it's going to be, read it, and, then maybe you can have a say in it as well. So for this first one, I have been mentioning it for a little while, and I've got some notes here. The book is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Mason, and in my notes here I've described him as a blasé pseudo-philosopher. That sounds derogatory, but I was really, really on board with the way he kind of approaches things. So I'm just going to go through what the book kind of is. So it sold me on the line, it's the self-help book for people who hate self-help, which I kind of hate self-help stuff. Since I think I watched The Secret, which is a film based on a book, which is basically this one premise, one thing that they kind of keep secret from you the whole way through, and I think that's the whole idea, that it's this really easy thing, and they're like, it's the secret, and they tell you at the end, and you're like, yep, obviously. The other thing that sold it to me is the fact that it's got fuck in the title, and that is novel. So New York Times #1 bestseller, over 2 million copies sold. I got the Audible version, so I got the audiobook. I absolutely love Audible. I have a subscription to them, one book a month, and I sometimes, quite often, when they do the offer, you get 3 extra books. So in a year, I go through quite a few audiobooks. What happened recently, and kind of one of the things that made me want to do this, is if you look back, you'll see the video on this about habits versus sort of goals, and it was all about resolutions, like New Year's resolutions. And so I set this habit of trying to go to bed earlier, and from that I sort of was like, right, how can I get to sleep better? So I have onset insomnia. It's not very bad at the moment, but it means that I don't sleep well. And, I usually take my phone to bed, and that's what I do, go on Instagram or YouTube for a bit before I go to sleep. The thing is, that keeps me awake. So what I've done instead is I'm going to bed a little bit earlier, but I'm taking a book with me. I'm leaving the phone in the other room far away. What this has meant is that in January, I actually ended up reading, if you include the audiobooks, I ended up reading like 11 books, one of which, this one, I listened to twice, so sort of 12 books worth if I'd been trying, which is kind of why I wanted to start this. I'm kind of backtracking now, but this is why I wanted to start doing something where I can have an outlet for those books that I've read. Hence this. So this book it's about kind of caring a little bit less about the things that don't really matter that much. So the overarching theme is that we all have problems, and you need to choose which ones of those you care about. It's not the other thing is, it's not the fact that we fail, but it's how we learn from those failures. It's all pretty basic stuff, but it's told in a really engaging way. So he starts out basically with chapter 1, which is called Don't Try, and he tells a story about Charles Bukowski, who's an alcoholic, womanizer, chronic gambler, a lout, cheapskate, deadbeat, on his worst days, a poet. That's Mark's words. He's probably the last person you'd ever think to start a self-help book with, because basically this guy made a living by sort of not giving a shit about anything. The next story he tells is the story of a prince who gives everything up because he's got this perfect life and he's never seen any hardship, and he gives all that up to go and basically live this hardship. If you kind of have ever heard of it, you'll start to recognise the stories he tells. It's a story of Buddha. So basically at the end, he kind of goes and sits under a tree for 40 days. So this book is told through, these ideas are given to you in a series of stories. Charles Bukowski, people with OCD who overcome it through learning not to give a fuck, basically. I really, really enjoyed this book. As I said, I went through it twice. The great thing about Audible is you can listen normally, and then the second time I went through it, put it on sort of 1.5 times speed or 2 times speed for a little bit, and you just pick up that it's like Cliff Notes, but you get the whole thing. So one of the other things he talks about is the feedback loop. This one really resonated with me. The feedback loop from hell. Basically, if you're depressed, you end up being depressed about being depressed. And it's a cycle. If you're angry, you end up being angry about being angry, and you have to just stop caring. And that's one of the first not giving a fuck things. One of the other things that he introduces into this is the concept of a superhero called Disappointment Panda. And this is basically a kind of martini drinking panda who you don't want to hear his advice. He comes and tells you the hard truths. And he tells you that, problems, everyone's got problems, but as Buddha kind of said at some point, you've got to choose the good problems. So one of the analogies is that Warren Buffett probably has money problems. If he loses a deal, if a deal goes bad and he loses money, they are still money problems, but they are much better money problems than, say, I have. So it's about changing your perspective on the problems that you have. It's about trading in the problems that you have for better ones. So another thing that he says is, if you're overweight and you feel that's a problem, that's a bad problem for you. If you change things around, you go running every day, the problem then is different, but it's better. You have to get running shoes. You have to get up and actually get out and go running. They're still problems, but they're better ones, basically. The key to living a good life isn't getting rid of struggle, it's finding good struggles that invigorate you, struggles that feel important to you, struggles that can contribute to the people around you, because that's where meaning comes from, and ultimately meaning is all that we need. So basically he's saying that problems and struggles, they're what keep us going. They're the driving force behind like humanity. Like, you're not going to get off your arse and do stuff if you've got nothing to go and do. The struggle is the motivation. So don't try and get rid of the problems or the struggles. Just have ones that you enjoy. So one of the things he talks about in relation to himself is he wanted to be a rock star, and basically he thought, Mr. Wi-Fi, but how do you get the motivation? Well, that's what he's saying. You're not necessarily going to need the motivation if the struggle is something you actually want to do. So this is what I was going to say about him wanting to be a rock star. He thought he wanted to be a rock star. He's ended up a writer. And that's because he didn't actually want the struggles of being a rock star. He wanted the end result, which, we all kind of want the end result of something that's unobtainable to us. He ended up being a writer because he actually really likes sitting alone, sort of having to hash out words. That struggle is the one that he wants. He doesn't want to be going out and lugging equipment around and playing to empty halls for years, trying to be a musician. It's a matter of changing perspective. It's not about what makes you happy, but what pain you're willing to sustain. This is a really, really good point. This follows on from what he said about being a rock star. It's if you can be happy with the struggles you have. So this is one that really resonates with me. I struggled for years trying to work for other people, even in jobs that I quite liked. There was just the struggle. It wasn't the struggle that I wanted. I was, I've had jobs where I earned decent money, nothing major, but just like ones where I was comfortable. It didn't fill up too much of my day, but I hated it, and I could never figure out why. And actually reading this book brought this home to me, that now that I work for myself, the struggles getting work, the struggles maintaining work, contacts that you find, you have to deal with people constantly. Money's always an issue because I work from job to job. But I love that struggle. I wouldn't change that, and that's why I'm a photographer. That's why I work freelance. It's not that that's the ideal job for me because of the outlet. It's the struggle that goes along with it. I'm really happy with. A man who thinks he knows everything learns nothing. So that's another thing that he covers in this book. He's on about accepting that you are mediocre. A bell curve is a bell curve because everyone's mostly in the middle. The 95 and the 5 percentile, they're the exceptional ones. And if we think we're all exceptional, then no one is. And being certain that being certain that everything's against you, that is a level of entitlement that's the same as thinking everything's great for you or everything should be great for you. Like thinking every problem is your problem is the same as every problem is everyone else's problem, and I'm above it. And that, he says, is bred from the kind of culture of like everyone gets a trophy for participating, everyone's special, everyone's little snowflake, which, yeah, it isn't right, and it's detrimental. So Mark says you aren't good enough, but you know what? He also says that's okay because that's how shit is. And he's saying that actually the people who do go on to succeed and go on to big things, they are the ones who kind of think they're really normal, and they have to like prove to other people that they're able to kind of escape that normal. Whereas if you think that you're something special, what's the point? What's the point in even trying? What's the point in doing anything extra? So just because he's saying the opposite of what most self-help books say, he's really against this idea of like standing in front of the mirror saying, "I will be happy today." You know, that like visualization sort of activity, because what he says is that kind of, all that's doing is you're basically, even though you're saying the affirmative, you're saying, "I will be happy." What you're actually saying, and what you're probably sort of subconsciously putting on yourself, is that I ain't happy. I'm miserable. I will be happy. I am miserable. I will be happy. You know that. So maybe it does work for some people. It seems like it probably does, but that kind of self-help doesn't work for me. Similarly, yeah, that's a really good point, Mr. Wi-Fi. You have to make happiness, don't you? Yeah, the kind of quest for happiness is a flawed idea. The better idea is to accept the situation you're in and be happy with it, which can be really difficult, especially if you're in a situation that you think is shit. What he says about the self-help industry is stuff that I've felt for quite a long time. And if you look at the characters you feel sorry for, if you look at the characters you feel sorry for in films and things like that, they're often, and I'm struggling to think of an example now, but they're the people. The way that we show that people are in a bad place is we send them to some sort of self-help seminar or something like that, and they're pitiful characters, and that's one way to show that. He must be right because he calls out conventional wisdom. I mean, he's not going so much against the grain. Just because he's using bad words in this book doesn't send him necessarily against the grain. This book fits with a world of books like this. It's not a grand departure. A lot of it is kind of common sense, which it's always good to hear common sense told back to you in a way that you can either be entertained by or relate to, because often you forget to use your own common sense. So I listened to the audiobook, and I love audiobooks when they're performed really well. This one, I'm not so sure it's performed well. I wouldn't recommend it, is as much as I'd say, unless you know that you would never read the physical book. So, as I said, he tells stories in this book, and that's how he gets across these ideas. and it's really unfortunate, and it really drags you away from the quality of the writing when thanks for watching anyway. It's good to see that people are actually watching, and I hope this is a bigger thing, and I'll actually announce it next time. But this time I'm literally just doing this on my phone, just because I wanted to get it out there. This was January's book review, and it's what, the 2nd or 3rd of Feb now. What is it? It's the 2nd. Only the 2nd. 2 days beyond what I put as my deadline. So yeah, so it drags you away from the quality of the writing, and where was I? It drags you away from the quality of the writing. These sort of accents that he does, and these impressions of, like, some of them. I know it's like, I feel like me saying this is like political correctness gone mad, but it feels quite offensive, or just derogatory, the accents that are done in this book. So if I had my time again, I'd probably just read it. I would recommend some other books. So off the back of reading this, there's a couple of other books that I think mirror some of the sentiments in this book, and one of them is a really, really great book that's been around for a very long time. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's a book in the same vein in that it was groundbreaking when it came out. It's got some really good advice in there, and it's told through sort of stories and case studies. The other books that came off this was a book, and you'll have to bear with me for a second because I've just forgot what it's called. I just keep calling it the Habit Book, but that's not what it's called at all. And it's another one that I got from Audible, and basically it's case studies, but it's a little bit more scientific. I think it's a bit pseudoscience-y. And it's... Well, I'll tell you what it's called. Do you know what? Actually, I'll talk about the next book, which is Do Purpose. So I've read quite a few of these Do books. In fact, that's what my actual February book review is going to be on, and it's just going to be on the series of them. But the one that I thought most related to the sort of I've not given a fuck was Do Purpose, and they're such quick reads that and they're like really, really cheap. You can find them. I bought a couple of them used on Amazon for sort of £4 to £5. Let's see what this other book is called. It is called The Power of Habit: Why We Do What We Do and How to Change. And it goes deep into the science of like the sort of sleeper part of your brain that adopts habits. So yeah, they're the books I recommend: The Power of Habit, Do Purpose, and what was the first one? Oh, Dale Carnegie's, I think it was written in like 1936, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah, it's well worth a read. It's a little bit tough because it feels like it doesn't apply today because the stories are so sort of wildly different from, 1936 office politics compared to now is pretty different. But yeah, it's a great book, and there's a lot to take away from it. Again, it's a common sense thing, much like the sort of art of not giving a fuck. To give it its full title, A Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life, which also I highly, highly recommend. I just don't recommend the audio version because of the slightly offensive seeming accents and impressions. Yeah, so next month I'm gonna try and have this set up a little bit better. For this one, I had sort of slideshows, I had images that go with it, I had a really nice little border that had the thing across the bottom that said it was a book review. And obviously you can't do any of that on your phone. And it turns out I can't do any of that on my computer either. The next one, as I said, is the Do Books. They are a great series of books, even if you just read one of them. Like I say, they're really quick reads for the most part. Do Story is the one that I was really focused on wanting to look at, but they're such short books that I really just thought I needed to put in some more context to them. And yeah, if you get a chance to read any of the books that I've mentioned, let me know in the comments and stuff like that. I'd really love to hear people's opinions on the subtle art of not giving a fuck. If you've read it, if you have seen it and thought, I really don't want to read that, let me know. And yeah, if you fancy kind of keeping up with these, I'll try and inform you a little bit more in advance rather than just going live in the middle of a Friday. And yeah, so subscribe, hit that little bell notification. I do a fair few other videos, mostly just about self-improvement, but my main sort of feature videos are photography related. So yeah, hopefully you'll like this video, and I'll see you next time. How do I stop it? I actually don't know how to stop this. Let's just turn it around.